Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. This is Lisa Fallon with Boston Cannabis Week. We're so excited to have an incredible group of women with us tonight. This is night one of a two-night series on cannabis positive parenting. We have some incredible moms here with us tonight. Meaka Brown of Mellow Fellows, Jill Osborne of Fine Fettle, Eve Marie Santana of High Beautiful, and Cara Crabb-Burnham of Elevate Northeast and Blackstone Valley Cannabis. These women have been very actively involved in our community. So we're going to talk a little bit tonight about some of the things they've struggled with. Tomorrow we have an incredible lineup of dads. Scott Patana will be with Sabo Shen, Joe Crinkley, Darrell Black, and Sean Judge. So make sure to tune in tomorrow night as well. So let's jump right in a little bit to kind of some of the things that we've talked about collectively facing. Meaka, why don't we get started with you? One of the things that I know you've spoken very openly about is having these direct conversations with your children and being in an environment where you're allowing them to feel safe to come to you when they have questions. But what that conversation leads to on a bigger level. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Meaka Brown. I have two daughters, 9 and 13, Troy and Inez. And so my husband and I recently had the talk with them. We tried to be cute and order a little book and have that conversation with them. But we quickly realized that a book was not the way to go, and to just be open and honest with them, um, and listen to what they had to say. We discovered that they knew far more about cannabis than we could ever imagine. But it also led to conversations about um, just drug use in general. The comparison to cannabis to other plants. I happen to be a herbalist, so I use plant medicine on a regular basis. And my kids, at the end of the day, we're comparing cannabis to the other plants that I use to help heal other people. And they just recognize cannabis as one of the plants that they couldn't use, amongst the many of plants that are on my shelf that they would never touch because it's not for children, or too much could hurt you. So I say to people, just be open and honest with your kids about cannabis use. Tell them why you use it. You know, if you only use it for recreational purposes, tell them that you just want to relax when you come home from work or whatever it is. But be open and honest with them. Children will catch you in a lie, especially my kids. Like, especially my kids, they will catch you trying to lie or fudge or make something up. Just be honest with them, and you will probably learn more about their state of mind, and it will probably put you at ease. So that's my
Thank
recommendation.
you. Thank you, Meaka. For those of you who don't know, Meaka Brown is now general manager at Mellow Fellows, which will be opening in Haverhill. Many of you might know her from interim general manager at Pure Oasis. So she really has been very immersed in this culture, like so many of the women here tonight. Thank you so much, Meaka. So Jill, one of the things that when we got to speak earlier a little bit really hit home with me was your us discussing a little bit about the disparities between alcohol and cannabis use among moms, and even furthermore use of prescription medications and other things, and there's such a big difference there. Do you want to speak a little bit more about that part of this?
Sure. I'm really passionate about this. I think, as moms, we get all these messages like coffee time until wine time and rosé all day. And it's this culture of acceptance around alcohol that I feel like if we went and substituted words like cannabis, like Team Sativa, and I showed up on the soccer field with a Team Sativa t-shirt instead of a Rose All Day t-shirt, there'd be a lot more judgment about that. And so I think it's, panels like this and conversations that we have as moms, both in public and in private, that will really, I think, work to erase some of that stigma and to bring cannabis more into the mainstream. And I mean, I don't think that the messages that we're sending about alcohol are acceptable. And I think, as Meaka talked about conversations with our kids, it's making sure that when we're talking about cannabis with our kids, we're talking about alcohol too, and cannabis as both a medicine and as a way for adults to relax in the same way that we use alcohol, or we promote alcohol use, and we don't try to hide that from our children. And so I think, Lisa, as you said, like there is this disparity around the culture of how we view and accept alcohol versus cannabis. And that's what I'm hoping that conversations like this will change.
I've heard recently, I was talking to a friend who was dealing with a situation, who had a child with cancer. And I know you're so familiar with children and disorders, and we fight in this country to say to the doctors, like, this plant can help my child, but it's so difficult to obtain medicine that isn't pharmaceutically made, quite frankly. And I know you've been really on the forefront and kind of paying attention to alternative therapies in regards to pediatrics, and how far away do you think we are as a society from being more open to providing plant medicine as a use of medications for children?
I think we're too far. And I know, when we first started fighting for cannabis access for my daughter Haley with epilepsy, our only route to access was a pharmaceutical study. And so I spent, over a year in a pharmaceutical study that we didn't actually want to participate in, to access a form of CBD, because it was our only chance at access at the time. And I think, even as we've seen some studies about cannabis and epilepsy and other conditions come forward in the media, and the non-psychoactive properties of CBD, I think we still see a lag time in the medical field as far as acceptance of that, and wanting more information and wanting more data and studies to be able to really open that up to kids. And we fought the initial pediatric regulations in Massachusetts had an end of life clause. And we fought really hard to remove that and try to get what we thought were workable regulations in place. And I think Sean will speak more to this tomorrow night in the fathers panel. But the truth is that we don't have workable pediatric regulations in Massachusetts right now. We have a pediatric patient needs to be certified by a pediatrician or pediatric specialist, but there's one in the state that is actually issuing those recommendations. And then you have to have a second physician on top of that. And so many of the larger hospitals, because they receive federal funding, are barring their doctors from being able to write those recommendations. So all the same hurdles that we had to access cannabis in the very beginning of the medical program when it was implemented are still in place. And we're just not seeing change happen.
Thank you. Thank you for filling us in on that. So much happens day to day. It's really hard to keep track of this. So Jill's with Klein Fettel. She's an amazing cannabis hiring and human resource expert. So at the end of our panel today, we're going to have everybody share their contact information, because all of these women are incredible resources and very talented and very well versed in their particular areas of the cannabis industry. So thank you. Cara Crabb-Burnham, I feel like, needs no introduction. Anyone who's in the industry knows Cara and has met Cara and gotten to work with Cara at some point, if you're lucky. Elevate Northeast, Blackstone Valley Cannabis, cannabis educator, startup operator. She's worked with numerous companies over the years. Just kind of also speaking to the medical side of this, I know some of your experiences have been dealing with our healthcare system, for yourself, and just the overall process of finding a better way to do this. So I would love to hear some of your input, particularly talking about perseverance and how you've managed to keep fighting and keep going and getting things done fighting discrimination when you're in a place where you know what helps you and everyone is telling you this is a bad thing. I think there's a tremendous amount of helpful information there.
Well, no, yeah, thank you for that awesome introduction. I'm sure there's way more people that don't know me, I hope, than do. My name is Cara, and yeah, I have been a cannabis consumer, I don't know, college, I mean, on a daily basis since college. And then I became pregnant in 2016. And there's a significant amount of time between there, but if I told you, then you'd know how old I am, and we'll just go with 28. So in 2016, I got pregnant, and I was already seeing the neurology department at Brigham and Women. That's where my feminine care doctor was. That's where my my dermatology was, my PCP was. Everything was through Brigham and Women. So, and every time I had a seizure for my nervous system disorder, we would go to Brigham and Women. So they were very familiar with my disease and my treatment and my use of cannabis. I've always been very open about it. There's no hiding it, really. So so when I got pregnant, they put me into the high risk department for pregnancy. So women who were expecting to have more issues and complications than normal. And one of the first meetings with the new doctor was that I was going to have to meet with the social worker at the hospital. And I was going to then to expect that immediately after birth, the baby was going to be rushed to the NICU for treatment for drug addiction, since I was a known cannabis user and had no intention of not using cannabis during my pregnancy. Now, before my pregnancy, I was also on an anti-seizure and anticonvulsant called Depakote, which is a known teratogenic, which means it will normally cause things like spina bifida, cleft palate, or, you know, it'll just end a pregnancy. It can just, you know, destroy an embryo. So, so I couldn't be on that. So I really didn't have a lot of options. It was like, risk it, go cold turkey with no medication and see how many seizures you have. And if you can keep a pregnancy going while having an unknown amount of seizures on a regular basis. Or, you know, use cannabis and let's just hope we can get through this and everybody's all right at the end. And I went with, you know, let's just get us through this, because I didn't know what my body would do if I took away the only medication that was truly working for a long time. So, so I did have to meet with the hospital social worker, and they were like, we're going to file a 51A. And hopefully you're not all familiar with 51A, but it is the filing method for parents who are having their children in dangerous situations or giving their children drugs. So yeah, they were going to wait for the baby to be born. They were going to do a meconium test from the first bowel movement, and that would confirm metabolites in the baby's system, and therefore they would file the 51A, and I would have a case with Department of Children and Families. So that wasn't really an option for me. I was really irritated about that. It didn't seem fair, since I was a known medical marijuana patient. I had one of those medical marijuana recommending doctors at the time too. So it's really important, if you can find a doctor when you're pregnant or, you know, who will support you through this. And they're very, very difficult to find, I will tell you. I told the hospital that I was going to be going to the main med, because this is a Massachusetts policy, and this is a policy, not a law. The 51A, anywhere that's a private, you know, company, like a hospital, the 51A it's under a policy. It's not like a law. They're not forced to file it unless like they catch you like putting heroin into your kid's arm, but like that's a criminal investigation. Like that's a totally different thing, you know? There's a lot more to, you know, giving your children something that you know could hurt their bodies or hurting them intentionally, versus taking a medicine that was legal, and they don't file this form for tobacco found in the baby system. They don't file this form for alcohol found in the baby system. They don't file this form for prescription medications that are found in your baby system. So you're telling me I'm doing something totally legal for an adult to do, just like any of those other things, but you're going to file this, you know, charge against me and like this investigation into my life. So my doctor at the time, my OBGYN, she told me to, she said to call Partners Healthcare. And so I did a little research into the different departments of the legal team of Partners that owns Brigham and Women, and I called the legal department under patient discrimination. And I told them I was a cannabis patient and I was being discriminated against as a mother, and that I was going to take all of this to the media, and we were gonna have this out in the streets, because you can't treat people like this. This is insanity. And I guess I scared them enough that they they dropped it. I know, like 3 weeks before I was due, I was headed up to Maine to meet with my new doctor. And it's so good that I had the baby at Brigham and Women, because I had a whole myriad of issues during my labor that I really needed to be at Brigham and Women. I might not be sitting here right now if I wasn't at the Brigham. My baby might not be 4.5 by now if we weren't there. So, but the best part of that one is that they ended up changing the policy at Brigham and Women. So if you know a woman who is a medical cannabis patient here in Massachusetts, who feels the need to use it throughout their pregnancy and is comfortable with that decision, and they should consider having their child at Brigham and Women. They're not going to file that form. And if it is happening to you, and this is a problem you're dealing with, call for patient discrimination. If you are, it's discrimination regardless if you're a patient of cannabis or not, because they're not going to, in a legal Massachusetts, they're not going to be able to file this for a tobacco user or an alcohol user. Like, they're not going to do any of this for them. So, find out who handles patient discrimination cases at your hospital if they give you a hard time about it. But I would also say try not to hide it, because if you find out at the last minute, there's nothing you can do about it. Like, if you wait till the last minute and they have a suspicion and they didn't say anything to you, then they test the baby, you have no case. Whereas if you're open and upfront in the beginning, you can know what the consequences are going to be, and either fix them or work around them, like go to another state. But doesn't care. So,
well, thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing your story and all those resources. It's really very important. And I want everyone to meet Eva Marie Santana of Hi Beautiful. Many of you might also know her from the community, cannabis advocate, mompreneur. Some of the things that Eva and I got to speak about included this awareness of what's going on and how that could be very scary, and the whole concept of having to answer to people because they think you're doing something bad when you're a good mom, you're taking care of your kids, you don't want to ever have to worry about them being taken away, and how so many women just get nervous and have this fear of that happening. And I would love for you, Eve, to talk a little bit about your experiences and how you think we can find maybe some resources for moms in that position.
Hey, thank you for hosting the conversation, and thank you all ladies for sharing your experiences so far. I feel very lucky to not have gone through a big scare where I felt like the institution of the hospital and the medical industry was trying to criminalize me for my use. Here in Rhode Island, during both of my pregnancies, just because of my, I'm blessed enough where I can use topical cannabis and it's going to help me with some of my ailments, where other medical patients might have to smoke it or vape it or eat it. But I say all that because I was able to use topical cannabis salve in areas of my body where I felt, were heavy on my hips, or from pregnancy pains and carrying human beings in your body. But I worked with my nurses and my OBGYN to be able to get extra testing to the point where they were like, we're not criminalizing you. This is going to be an educational process, but we've tested you. We trust you're not using it. But I just, felt that I had a duty to the community, or in general, not to just say, yeah, use it topically, but to be able to look another mom in the eye and, with my integrity and experience and know, hey, I also have data that it doesn't go through your skin unless you're using a transdermal product, where, you know, usually transdermal products tell you that it's a transdermal product and all that. But the salve really helped me. But I did have an experience where I didn't have a scare, but I just used my networking and I called, you know, the Department of Child Abuse, because I was on WIC. And when I went, I made the mistake of leaving my personal garden when I was growing as a patient, protected by the state. I had my card. The woman smelled the cannabis, and my appointments ended up lasting an hour and a half instead of 15 minutes to just follow up on nutrition. And it's because she decided that, you know, she just had a duty to the federal government or whoever was her boss to report me for my smell, considering that I was carrying 2 children in my body, and, you know, I shouldn't have been using substance. So I went into my professionalism to show her, you know, I coordinate education. At the time I was working for the New England Cannabis Convention. And, you know, something that this plant taught me was to put some respect on it, because there was definitely a time where I would be like, you know, Mom, you just have to smoke it, like, chill. But it's, you know, sometimes it's really not all good, you know, especially when you come from particular places and communities where this thing has criminalized you and disqualified you for so many years. And I felt that way, you know, when my child even started talking about it, or when, you know, like, Mom, it's your work, they said cannabis, like, she's 4.5, but she says it and recognize it with respect, you know, that it's an adult thing. So I had to learn how to posture up and put some respect on it, because I didn't have, you know, I didn't have a moment to really humble me, like, oh shit, because of this, my children are going to be taken, or, you know, just I had to learn what were the appropriate risks to take. But building community has been huge. You know, Meaka and I had the pleasure of working together on a project over at Pure Oasis, getting the store up and running together. Like, we got scrapbook for days, but beyond that, we built community together. I reach out to Meaka for things to talk to my children about as it relates to all herbs and plants. But, you know, having a career with the plant and, you know, policy, or just in general, you know, leaving your children because it matters, because not all events are appropriate for children, having to learn those boundaries. So I would say fear not, especially with, you know, new policies, but to definitely tap into community.
That is such helpful and insightful information. And it sounds like the point you're trying to drive home is just building the team or building the community around you is going to get you through those hard times when you just need somebody to help you figure it out. And I think that's something that
amazing women too, that, you know, from people that are literally at the state houses, you know, doing the do to change policies that help protect people, that are attorneys to help us know what our rights are, you know, just really tapping into the community. It's a phone call away, an email away, where, you know, I don't know one woman in the cannabis space or community that'd be like, man, fuck this person, especially as it relates to the village, the children, especially, that we're talking about parenting.
Yeah, that's really key. And I would love, from any of the women here, I would love to hear more about particular resources that have been really helpful to you. And I would even go so far as to say, send me the links and we'll make sure it goes up on the Facebook page as well, because we all know resources are everything in this arena. So are there particular people that have been instrumental in each of your lives helping you navigate this area? Meaka, looks like Meaka has something there she wants to share.
So for me, this is one of my mentors, Tammy Sweet. She's up in Ithaca, New York. Tammy is an herbalist, a licensed massage therapist, professor of anatomy and physiology, and blah, blah, blah. We could go on and on. But she's also a resource for me. I've taken several of her courses on the endocannabinoid system, the plant itself. And that's what really helped kind of bring down all of my preconceived notions and misconceptions. Most of you know that I come from law enforcement, family of law enforcement. So cannabis was not the place that anyone thought I would land, especially having worked with my family for 10 years in law enforcement, and to literally just get up one day and say, I'm gonna go work in cannabis. That was not what anybody thought was gonna come out of my mouth. My grandmother still calls me weekly and asks me if I'm smoking reefer around the kids, and to remind me that that is not, that is not cool. But learning about the plant, and what it does, and about the endocannabinoid system in the human body, is what brought down all of the myths, all of the preconceived notions, really, really, really helped me to understand why I needed to do the work to help get the drug descheduled, why I needed to attend these information sessions, and talk to people about it, why, why this work was important, not only for me, but for my community, for the Black and Brown community especially. We have been disenfranchised from the plant. This is, this is an ancient plant that does amazing things. And there has just been a halt, don't go there, for people, because they're afraid they're going to go to jail. They're afraid of the negative ramifications that will come from cannabis use. And that has to stop. Like, we can't do that anymore. So for me, the most important thing that I can do for my community is to educate one person at a time. And that's telling them the facts, telling them about the origin of cannabis, telling them about what the war on drugs really is, when it started and why it started and who did it, and why we can't tolerate this government oversight over a plant that all of us can grow in our backyard. The same way we grow lavender, the same way we grow rosemary, the same way we grow oregano, we should all be allowed to grow cannabis. So that this right here, this woman, hone in on her, because if you have questions about cannabis and the scientific parts and the herbal parts, this is the way to go. It's scientific, but it's readable. it's not like, wait, 1100, I don't know what she's talking about. So that is the best resource that I can recommend for everybody.
Meaka, please send me the link to that, and I'll make sure to put it in the comments, okay?
I'm really fortunate. I feel like a totally different experience of being parented than Meaka did, because, like, I remember when I was a kid, I just told my mom to tune in. Let's see if she's like, don't tell me secrets. But I mean, I remember when I was a kid and I was in high school, and like, or probably before high school, but I was like, hey mom, what's weed? And she was like, huh, it's awesome, but not yet. Like, you're young, like, you're young, just like, leave it alone, it'll be fun eventually, like, don't mess with it now. And then, I got older, and then I was like, hey mom, what's cocaine? And she was like, cocaine is a terrible idea for you and everyone in our family, let me explain. And then she, gave me some stories of, people in our family who should probably not have been doing cocaine for that long or that much, or at all at that point. And then, there's stories of, little by little, I ask, as then I get older, I get more and more information behind an honest answer. Like, she never once gave me the DARE program BS. She never told me to be afraid of something. Like, she was really honest about her experiences. And I think that gave me a much better approach to how I used drugs as an irresponsible teenager. Like, because, like, most people are going to try drugs. They're going to try something as a kid, usually it's alcohol and tobacco, and then it's weed, and then it's next. And then once it gets into illicit drugs, that's a factor of the of an illicit market rather than a factor of the drug where, people use. So, having a really honest answer, I think, was important. And then in 2019 at the Boston Freedom Rally, my mom and my son and I stood on stage together and talked about, how important that honesty is and that awareness. And I just think that was a really fortunate experience for me, having been parented by someone who's honest about it and knowledgeable from experience, not necessarily a research expert in like hallucinogens, but certainly has some stories about hallucinogens and, you know, can share.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It really is. It's good to hear the different types of parenting styles and how that both, you know, kind of helped mold you to where you landed now. Jill, what about you? Is there anything, one thing in particular that you find to be a really good resource?
I think Eve really hit on it. It's community. It is really being brave enough to have open conversations, not being afraid of the judgment, not being afraid of legal, you know, ramifications, not being afraid of losing your kids. It was one of the things in our pre-call that we talked about that I found so compelling was how we all had an element of fear around our cannabis, you know, whether we're talking about it even just in an educational aspect or talking about cannabis consumption, talking about me, when I was talking about my child as a cannabis patient. I know my older daughter, my kids are 14 and 19 now, so they have a 5.5 year age gap. And Haley, my youngest, was the cannabis patient in our house. My child was the cannabis consumer in our house. And so when the DARE program and you know and like drug education and awareness was happening with my older daughter in high school, we had to sit down and have follow-up conversations about cannabis is medicine and the messages that you're getting about cannabis use at school and the you know, and drug awareness are a little bit different than the messages that I'm going to give you, because it's not about just say no. It's about let's use cannabis in a responsible way when you're a 21 plus adult, or let's look at the medical uses of cannabis and why it would be what would be valid reasons for even kids to use it. And so I think that those conversations change, you know, with age, but I do think that leaning on our community, leaning on other parents, other moms, other dads, and just being brave enough to be open and have those conversations is really important. And I think one of the great things about even the professional side of the cannabis industry is that we have this element of compassion that's lacking in other areas of corporate America. And there is a sense of unity here. Like we really are here for the plant, and you don't find that in so many other industries. And it's been the most rewarding part for me of being part of this industry.
That's awesome. That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with us, really. Eve, we believe you said your kids are a little bit younger, right? So your conversations with them are as much, obviously they're factual based, but they have to maybe be handled a little bit more delicately than high school aged or so. How do you even go about like having that conversation and even introducing it, you know?
So I do prefer that my children mind their business. No, I do. When it does come up, I have my little jar with me, but I have like this, you know, child safe jar that is a part of my stash. And, you know, there have been times where like it's on the counter because I didn't put it away or something, but it's again safe. But they're like, but I'll address it like, oh, that's mommy's medicine. And they'll be like, stinky. But I'll say stinky like celery, or I'll just like change it to some Veggie Tales ass way to, you know, like it's normal. Because I don't want to practice abstinence or no, or it's definitely not for them. You know, Ariella, my oldest, she can definitely identify the word cannabis as it relates to my work, just because when I'm practicing a pitch or I'm practicing copy, or it just comes up, the cannabis event, there's always something, there has been attached while she's since out of my womb. You know, it's something that I don't necessarily say we're going to have a talk, but when it does come up because of the smell, or, you know, if they're asking what someone's doing, if we, you know, pre-COVID in groups, hanging out at a park or outdoors, recently walking in Boston, it went beyond the scope of cannabis. Ariella smelled someone that was drunk on the side of the road. But even though I don't agree with that, I just, you know, said, oh, he's a little tired right now, you know, like he had too much to drink, or, you know, like I'm not going to mention the drink part because she doesn't understand that. He's just tired right now. You know, we're going to keep going. We're not going to like keep staring. But it's just one of those things where when it comes up naturally. And for me, it definitely comes up a lot, you know, because of work. So it's, she understands that it's something that adults do. She understands that I care a lot about it. At one point, she was associating a lot of Jamaica to my work with cannabis, because it's a roots thing. And I want to make sure that they understand, the culture that we're a part of too, where it's not a hidden thing. It's definitely a sacred thing as it relates to how we benefit from it and respect it. So with respect to, again, that it's for adults, and in the sense where the adults will choose if, there's a reason for the children to use it or be a part of it and around it.
That's really, thank you for sharing that with us. It makes a lot of sense. And
And
I
the twins there
appreciate,
too. So they kind of copy everything that they
they're
does.
like,
And
whatever.
she's not out here playing with my weed, so,
Yeah.
they're minding their own business. But
Yeah.
it's something that, like, Georgia, one of my twins, she's the one that, like, she's a little, taller. She grabs it and she's like, but I didn't react like, oh my goodness, or like when my partner told me about it, it wasn't like, oh my God, because we know what we're doing, we're responsible. This is a safe, oops, didn't put it in the cabinet, but guess what? It's not in anybody's mouth. Nobody's, but I do feel that it is important that we emphasize responsible use, because it's not the stats about children that have ended up in the hospital as poor cannabis, use is a thing. So I don't want to be ignorant to irresponsible use.
There's
Right.
no like restrictions on how we have to store our cans of Coors Light or our snap off Truly cans or the champagne bottles that have the twisty top. There's no regulation on how we keep that locked up in our houses. So
I feel that. I just think right now in general, like the cannabis space for the government is a money grab. You have people using their regulatory discretion as how they're gonna fucking tax patients on left and right. And in particular, Rhode Island, I'm like not laughing because it was like, wow, how disrespectful. They're like taxing people left and right, getting them to tag every single plant. That's not respecting people and why they're using the plant. It's a tax grab. So I totally get the frustration, but I also see it as a markup. Like every single fucking plastic safety piece for the packaging company is an upsell to the, all that vertical integration nonsense. But hey, we as, cannabis responsible consumers, adults, et cetera, we have respect for this plant and how we're using it, how it's a part of our lifestyle. So hey, if it means that we have to put it up higher on the shelf or whatever, be private and more discreet, I'm willing to, go off the grid if I have to.
Right. Right. It's interesting because Cara, you had mentioned about the alcohol component of this. So something I had shared with each of you that I haven't really talked about too publicly is that my husband and I are in the process of adopting a child, which we're super excited about. But it's been a very long process and dealing with DCF on the other side of things and just being like the level of investigations and the level of everything that everyone's looking into is really intense to go through for a long period of time. One of the things that we just did just last week is I had a wooden wine rack in the house, and they told me I had to lock up the wine. And I was like, but like, why? And they were like, it can't be accessible to the child. And I said, well, can't it just be a rule? Like, do I have, and I had to go get a rack that has a lock. So like, there's still this mentality of lock it up, don't let the kids near it, don't talk about it, my family's Italian. I remember being very young the first time all of my cousins tried a sip of wine, like, and it was the same response. Everyone was like, ugh, gross, ew, gross. And that was that. Europeans don't even look at this the same way we do, or a lot of the world globally, the views are very different, as a matter of fact. So that it's been very interesting kind of watching this all play out from that side of things. But I really do, I'm a student of each of yours. I'm like taking notes, like, okay, this is when I have to have this conversation and this conversation, this is how you handle things. ultimately, I feel like it's really been a testament to building a community, empowering one another, and the support each of you have provided for one another. We've taken up a lot of time. Feels like we've only been here for a few minutes, but before we wrap up, I want to give a chance for any questions that anyone has today that's watching on Facebook Live. Feel free to drop them in the comments and we'll shoot them over to the panelists. And then I would just like to kind of go around quickly and have each of you talk about what you're working on right now and some of the things that you're focused on for 2021 now that like there's an other side of this happening finally.
So, well, I'm the general manager at Mellow Fellows in Haverhill, which will be opening this summer. I am knee deep in construction right now. If anyone knows what that's like, pray for me. Pray. Smoke one for me. But I'm also I'm working on a few different initiatives. I'm writing a cannabis curriculum specifically for the urban community, for Black and Brown people. You know, growing up the way I did, there was no discussion of drugs. There was no discussion around drug use or anything. It was simply don't do it. You will go to jail. You will get arrested. And coming from a law enforcement family, there's a general rule: don't call your parents, don't call your dad. You know, my father was like, I'll leave you in jail. No one will be able to get you. And you know, that came from a fear of watching other family members go to jail and almost never come out for simple possession of a joint, or you know, the neighbor down the street you know, who got arrested and never came back. And when they came back, they weren't the same. There is the fear of entering into the cannabis industry. There is a fear of, you know, possession. There's an overall fear of losing housing. So many different things that happen to our community. So I'm working on a curriculum to education course, not necessarily a course, you know, anyone can participate, but to reintroduce the plant to people of color and people from the urban community. That's the project that's really dear and close to me that I'm working on right now.
Thank you. And where can people reach you if they wanted to just reach out and get in touch with you?
At Meeksb is my Instagram handle, MEAKA, no, MEAKA. You know, I'm Meaka Brown on Facebook. You can hit me up. You can find me really easily. MEAKA.
Thank you so much, Meaka. I'm so grateful to have you here. Cara, why don't you jump in and talk to the folks about some of the stuff you have going on?
Well, I'm really excited about the scholarship fund that Elevate recently launched. And yeah, I'm really excited about it. I just need lots of people to put money in it. So that's sort of the focus right now for me on the Elevate side is, yeah, I need money. But we have like over 30 students who have already enrolled in different programs at Holyoke Community College that are specifically targeted for cannabis workforce training. So these are students that we know are dedicated, are going to show up and, you know, need help funding their education, their training experience. So right now it's like, help me fill this fund. So if you're listening and you have extra money that you don't know what to do with, I will take it and I will put it to very good use. And I will help workforce training programs develop students that are ready to be hired and succeed and create generational wealth in the cannabis industry.
And how can people reach you?
You elevate ne.org. And Beth is going to shoot me. You can find me on Instagram. It's Cara.Crabb with 2 B's.Burnham@gmail.com. You can find me.
Thank you so much, Cara. Thank you for all your insight on tonight's panel. Jill, so why don't you tell everybody what you have going on for the year?
Sure. So I took this job with Fine Fettle at the kind of start of the pandemic, and just been working to get my feet underneath me in a new company and a new position, and it's been really wonderful. And so we're expanding in both Connecticut and Massachusetts markets, but I've been in the cannabis industry since since 2015. So if you have questions on how to get into the industry, things that recruiters in this industry might look for, hiring practices, onboarding practices, systems that are used, because it is, banking obviously, and payroll systems and things like that are a challenge in this industry. I'm happy, to talk to anybody about those things. And I think as Massachusetts has moved into adult use and all of the focus has shifted, we've kind of forgotten that we had a broken medical program to start with, and we haven't done enough to change it. So my hope this year is to get back to my roots, and try to fight for better pediatric access, and just a better medical program for patients in need. If you want to reach out, you can find me on LinkedIn under Jill Osborne. That's no U, no E. My name is always tricky to spell, Osborn, or josborne@finefettle.com.
Thank you so much, Jill. This
Thank
has been
you.
incredibly helpful, and I appreciate all your insight. Eve, please tell us what you have going on this year and how the people can get in touch with you.
Awesome. So I love selling weed and weed things. So I'm working with Wepa Hemp Farms. We're working on our global hemp distribution. So we're actively looking for people that want to join our team, whether that's in a sales capacity where you kind of work, on your own and you figure out your distribution, and we work with you from farm to your clients, in the private label space as well. But I also love to help people make edibles and topicals using Ardent technology. And tomorrow, we're going to be showcasing our technology at the Cannabis Real Estate Summit. So if you're interested in cannabis real estate, that event is produced by Manada Events out of New York City, but this is a virtual function. People can get their continuing education credits if they wanted to, if they're real estate agents and wanted to get involved in that capacity. But we will be demonstrating what, Ardent has to offer as it relates to making your own products. So I'm looking forward to learning more, though, about how we could really help liberate communities and whatever that means. There's a lot of people on the ground, grassroots, doing different things. I'm personally passionate about access to arts and technology for the youth. So I'm looking forward to seeing a little more of that reflected in my work in the coming years, but sparking that this year with the SMART project out of Dallas, Texas.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And what's the best contact to get in touch with you?
You can visit highbeautiful.com, and within a couple seconds, that'll have that little opt-in for our email. I'll reach out once a month, but my email is evemarie@highbeautiful.com.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That's so great. Everything you said tonight was so incredibly helpful. Thank you. And I think I mentioned it earlier. I'm Lisa Fallon. I'm the co-founder of Boston Cannabis Week. I'm very inspired by all the women we have here tonight. And Boston Cannabis Week will be back September 20th to the 26th, 2021. So mark it on your calendars now. We are working hard. The team is growing. We have a lot of things happening on the back end. We're going to be making a lot of fun announcements in the next few weeks, including some other virtual events that we have coming up the rest of the year. One thing I want to throw to the group before we go, one of the Facebook questions that came through was specifically in regards to CBD. If any of the moms have given CBD to their children, and if you haven't, would you? Go ahead, Jill.
I have. I mean, obviously, it's where we started. It was where all of the initial media about epilepsy and information that came out was all about CBD. And I think it's a great tagline to say it's non-psychoactive. I also don't think it's always the best option. And I think we really need to stop vilifying THC, but I get for pediatric access why we would go to CBD first. I think that there's a lot of misinformation about CBD. And it's really important to do your own research on the supplier and make sure that you're getting something that is grown safely, extracted safely, tested in a way that's accurate and replicable. So I think that that's one of the most important things that we learned, and hurdles that we encountered in the beginning of our cannabis use with my daughter, was making sure that it's safe, consistent, and accessible. So if you're going to access CBD products in terms of like hemp oil that you can purchase without a medical card, make sure that you're getting it from a really reputable distributor.
So I actually make a CBD salve along with other herbs that my daughters had. I mean, they just went and got some out of the big jar in the apothecary, and they just use it when they have an ache, pain, boo boo, you know, themselves. My apothecary is open to them. They actively diagnose and solve their own problems on their own. So if there's a boo-boo, it's, oh, go get some of the salve. It's in the apothecary. So yeah, I mean, once you get past the initial, conversation, and cannabis is a part of your life, then it's a part of your life. So obviously I'm not giving them a joint to smoke or anything like that, but in certain spaces it's going to be useful to them, and I've taught them how to be responsible. They would prefer to use the cannabis topical, to solve an ache than to give them some Tylenol. I mean, it's actually safer. So yeah, I had to think for a second, but I'm like, yeah, these kids, they go get their own medicine.
And CBD is one of those things that when we were first looking for it, everybody knew somebody who might have a high CBD plant, and it ended up being like, not really. And now it's just exploded and it's everywhere. So, it is one of the great things that has happened with access as far as opening up to CBD products and the media surrounding that and the attention it's been given.
Yeah, I haven't had too much opportunity to give Dash anything. He's really incredibly healthy, knock on wood. But I will say, shout out to all the pet moms out there. Like, pet moms, you're real moms. Like, and I gave all of my pets, and still give all of my pets, their CBD when they are off the wall, crazy dog puppy action, running in circles. Like, dude, calming bite. You want a calming bite? It's got CBD. Yeah.
Yeah, we use CBD in my house regularly, not in the edible form, but I have a salve where we use it for moisture, because the one that I have is with cocoa butter and shea butter. So I've really trained all the girls to make sure that, after they brush their teeth, around their mouth has a little bit. And it's my go-to thing. I don't use I grew up using Vicks in my socks when I was having a cold and stuff, but like my go-to now is my CBD salve. But just like Jill said, making sure that I have confidence in where these products come from if they're going to be anywhere in the household, for sure.
Right. And I would be in a lot of trouble by my business partner if I didn't mention Boston Hemp Company is an incredible product. And they care very much about what they're sending out. And just as you should support Meaka's business, also support Boston Hemp Company and anyone who truly loves their product like we all do. So we're about all done for the night. If there's anything else anyone else would like to throw in or mention, I'm incredibly, incredibly grateful that you all gave your time to be with us tonight and share this information. And that's really the mission of Boston Cannabis Week. We just want to be a platform to provide and open up these conversations and connect the dots wherever we can.
Don't
Teach one, reach 10.
Yes. So tomorrow night, Scapatano will be here with the dads. I might pop in and wave, but it's my husband's birthday, so I'm going to be doing that. So we have Sabo Shen from Hanu Lab and Vape Exhale, Joe Crinkley from MCR Labs, Darrell Black from Pure Oasis, Scott Patano, co-founder of Boston Cannabis Week, and Sean Judge, owner of Nine Oaks Farms, and he's a combat veteran advocate. So there's going to be another hour of really great conversations. Make sure to come back tomorrow at 6 p.m. Make sure you follow Boston Cannabis Week on everything, and head to bostoncannabisweek.com for all the latest updates. And thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate you all. Thank you. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Thanks, Mom.